because we've only got, what, 79 days now, I think, until the election, as of when we're recording. Let's go ahead and put the New York Times Siena poll. So this poll came out over the weekend, and it dramatically just shows you how Kamala Harris has a significant polling advantage to where Biden was. So here from the New York Times Siena, they polled battleground states as well as the Sun Belt. So what do we see? Arizona, Kamala Harris, 50%. Trump at 45%. That's huge. I mean, Arizona with a 5-point spread. North Carolina, they actually have Kamala leading Trump by 2 points. Now, Nevada is where things are interesting. Trump is there at 48, Harris at 47. Georgia, Trump is at 50, Harris is at 46. What this tells us is that Kamala significantly changes the map for 270 that Biden ever had. I mean, I frankly think his map was dead, the day of the debate. But let's say as dead possibly as him. But whenever he was, let's say previously, whenever he had not done the debate, and we think about what his theoretical map was, he really was reliant on the so-called blue wall, and that was like Arizona was gone, North Carolina was gone, Nevada even very likely not there, Georgia. He needed to win Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where these North Carolina numbers, the Arizona numbers, and others, they open up a different possibility for Kamala to get to 270. It also reflects, frankly, the changing nature of the country. I don't think it's an accident Arizona and North Carolina are two of the, I think they have the most dynamic economies in the United States just in the last 2 years, and both have had massive inflight of population from California, from other blue states. So they've got a bluer population this time around, people who are much more likely to vote on abortion and all of that.
Yes, and I think we'll have Anderson Clayton, who's the North Carolina county chair. You guys might have followed that story. She's like 25.
Yeah, she's very young.
And won this grassroots campaign where she overthrew all these old dudes and is taking a completely different approach to trying to win North Carolina. Obama won it, if I'm not mistaken, in 2008, right? And so because he did, Democrats have been just pining for it every time since then.
Well, and they've had Democratic governors since then.
They have one right now.
They have one right now. So it's not out of reach. Arizona seems to be going increasingly blue, in the same way that Iowa went from a swing state to like just deep red at this point. Feels like Arizona could potentially go that way for all the reasons you're talking about. A lot of Democrats coming from both the Northeast to retire and California to retire, and also to escape California, and they bring their voting patterns with them. And so, Biden was the only reason that it was even in play. They have two Democratic senators.
Yeah. And don't forget this, they have abortion on the
and a Democratic governor, Democratic
Arizona,
AG.
They had that whole 1860s law, and then they had to change it, but there's actually still going to be a ballot referendum in Arizona, which the abortion activists fought very hard to put on. I would not underestimate that, Emily, for turnout wise. So it's interesting because we're seeing that reflected at the DNC here. I have noticed that you're seeing party chairs obviously flying from Arizona and others, but they're getting not only key slots, and I was talking with some others when I was in the airport because many of the activists and other things were there, and they were like, oh yeah, there's a lot of energy around Arizona, around North Carolina. So it's clear that the Kamala campaign and the DNC is doing their best while we're here in Chicago to elevate the battleground states that are newly in play as a result of Kamala coming to the ticket.
That's a really good point. And the other thing in North Carolina is obviously Mark Robinson is considered to be a weak candidate. He's obviously a polarizing and controversial candidate. So what that can do for Democratic turnout in North Carolina, it's important to note. Now, in that New York Times Siena poll, the margin is in most states it's between plus or minus 4. Basically, it's roughly plus or minus 4.
So it's kind of a tie.
So it's basically a dead heat, which is like incredible given where Biden was not that long ago. And to the point we started talking about this poll on, there is something that I think, and Ryan, I'm curious what you think. It's not just top down with Kamala Harris. It's also people projecting their, and I'm going to use the controversial word du jour, joy. And I really mean it, that people are overjoyed that they do not have to vote for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think
and
you're
so
correct
you project onto Kamala Harris that relief. And so some of it, I do think, there's a group of people in states like North Carolina or Arizona that are genuinely like excited to rediscover Kamala Harris because they're so desperate to have a good option instead of arguably one of the worst possible options. I don't know.
Yeah, and what I've heard from Democrats is that what their internal polling is showing is that basically what you described has brought back the Democratic coalition into the fold. Like Biden's erosion was not because people were kind of switching over to Trump necessarily. They were dropping into kind of undecided or over to RFK.
Yeah.
With Kamala back, they've all come back. So she's brought back that coalition. But that's not enough on its own. Like what they're saying is that in general, the polls are still showing her up about a point or two. At this time, Biden and Hillary were both up by 6 to 7 points.
Yes, that's right.
Good point.
And Democrats need to be up substantially in the national vote in order to win the Electoral College, unless they figure out some new path, which Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina could actually present to them.
I just wanted to add something on that. Harry Enton made a very good point on CNN last week where he analyzed where the polls are versus where they were in 2016 and 2020 and said, actually, Trump, where the polls are now, if you account for the polling errors and say that they haven't been corrected significantly, which they weren't from 2016 to 2020, they were corrected a little bit, but not significantly, then this could still, the polling as it stands right now, could still be showing a Trump victory.
Yeah, I want everyone to, that's my last corollary here, which is let's also just all remember, having been burned multiple times, 2020 and also 2022, where we can't put full stock in all of this. And I would also say I have Nate Silver's election forecast in front of me. Kamala, 53.5% chance of winning the Electoral College. Donald Trump at 45. If we look at Polymarket and the betting markets, Kamala currently has 51% and Trump 47. But I'm actually reading Nate's book right now, and I highly recommend it. Something he just tries to drum into people. 47 is very high.
Yes.
Yeah. Imagine putting if you had a 47% chance of losing everything, you should be pretty afraid. Like you should be afraid.
He had Trump. He had Trump in 2016 at about 30, 35.
Yeah, 35. And that was right.
Which was like, that's a really big chance.
Yeah, that's 1 in 3.
1 in 3.
Hey, 1 in 3. Think about that.
Exactly.
Like, what that means.
You put a gun to your head, and
you have a 1 in 3 chance of death. Like, think about that.
2 bullets in a 6-shooter. Like,
but that's part of what I want. I want
this.
everyone to internalize how the things are still very, very much in a toss-up right now. The key that the Democrats are going to be going for is the traditional bump that you get after the convention, and that's, part of the reason we're all here is we expected some chaos. We had planned this whole thing. We're like, oh, there's going to be all this chaos for the DNC. But to be honest, there has been protests. And we're going to cover that a little bit later in the show. They're pretty unified right now. So what they're trying to do is present a full picture of we're in this. We're ready to beat Trump. I've been very interested in Kamala kind of rolling her eyes at Trump attacks. She's like, classic, but we're going to beat him in November. I'm seeing, in terms of the Democrats, and there's been some policy stuff. We're about to talk about that as well. But the overall political picture is it's clear that Trump is a little bit flat-footed. Now, ever since the last time we all spoke, I know you guys have covered some of this. Trump he's basically back on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
He'll be having, I think, 2, maybe 3 events that are just this week, trying to do some DNC counter-program. He's actually literally doing a rally as we speak now.
There was a press conference with Rick Scott and Ron Johnson
so
that I heard was quite boring earlier this morning.
2 real genius politicians that we definitely want on our side.
And they were going after Walz for his China connections.
They dipped into Chicago to have a little counter-programming. It doesn't seem to have worked one
Didn't
bit.
work?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I see. Yeah, so Trump is doing a press conference right now. It looks like he's I think he's in Milwaukee. Anyway, just trying to check in on what they're trying to do, because what they want is counter-programming. The DNC is happening. It's going to take over the media. Tonight we've got the Biden speech. Obviously, there's so much at stake, honestly, even for Biden, because if he melts again on the stage, that's just going to increase not just questions about whether they should drop out. It's like, dude, can you even be president right now?
Well,
Like, what are you doing?
How are we not even talking about that?
Yeah,
Like, that
that's a
should
whole
be the
other
top
story.
line tonight.
Every single time I read the news about ceasefires or Ukraine or anything stuff, I'm like, I can't believe this melted man is literally in charge of the country. Like, it's insane. It's an insane thing. Now, he will be on the stage tonight. I'm very curious to see how he does. Can you imagine if he has a similar debate level meltdown? And one of the things we're about to get to with the policy is the tying of Kamala to Trump. Kamala to Biden. If he does a bad job tonight, that will actually be a bit of a problem. Part of the reason, again, why I think they scheduled him today, just to make sure that if he screws it up, they can deprogram their way out of it.
But I do think he'll get through his speech. I think he'll slur his words. I think he'll mess some stuff up.
Yeah.
But he can still read off a teleprompter to some degree, and as long as they don't put in things like pause for applause.
Yeah, but he can
That
do.
he
But he might do that.
But he's
though.
done that
Yes.
however many times
Yeah.
already. It really, I mean, he lost the ticket, but he's still the president. So
Like, there could not be a lower bar for him to have to clear.
Good point.
Well, yeah. So on that point, Saagar, I think we can put this next element up on the screen. This is A3. This is the cringe celebrity lineup.
Yes.
So this is the weakness, to the extent there is one, when Democrats have all of this momentum, and they have momentum in polling. They have massive momentum with the press. Kamala Harris's favorability is going from the most unpopular vice president in modern history to somebody with pretty high favorability and great treatment in the press. They have all of this going for them. And then they put a cast of celebrities. They did something similar in 2020, but they put this cast of celebrities in charge of like emceeing the nights. And one of them is Ana Navarro, Saagar's, I think probably your favorite.
Absolutely, of course. My favorite View cast member.
One of your, your
You nailed
favorites.
it. Yeah.
Although there's stiff competition, but Ana Navarro, Kerry Washington, Tony Goldwyn, Mindy Kaling, we don't know how front and center that they will be, but I expect this to become a pretty big part of the Republican counter programming. And my expectation, though, is that with Democrats having all of this momentum, Kamala Harris is on her honeymoon. This extends that honeymoon just a little bit longer. Yeah. I don't know that it sticks around until after Labor Day, but I also just think this is going to be Democrats' week. There isn't going to be a lot Republicans can do, as in the last month, to draw attention away from it and to draw favorability away. It's going to be a love fest.
Yeah, last thing on this then, as I kept hearing from the Republicans, they're like, no, we're going to unload on her after Labor Day. And I was like, I just think we're wasting a lot of time here. There's a lot of time that was wasted in the last couple weeks where Kamala's basically allowed to coast. I mean, how many interviews has this lady done?
To reestablish herself.
Yeah, zero interviews.
And has totally reestablished her image with the American public.
Reestablished her image with the American public. The media is literally like coronating this woman like live on television. In terms of interviews, zero. Quote, hope to have one scheduled by Labor Day. Still nothing scheduled. I was literally out sick for an entire week, and she still has not scheduled an interview. That's crazy. Yeah. It's August 19th, so she doesn't have to do an interview this entire week, right, Ryan? That gives us to Labor Day. She's been a candidate for almost a month. Nothing. I see that she answers question in a Sheetz gas station for less than 2 minutes. gives one answer. Cool. It's like it's
fakes
one of those
the Doritos thing.
Yeah,
Did you see that?
Doing a fake video about Doritos. I mean, this is all we're getting from this woman. Her one. Now, so it's astounding to me. It's crazy.
Her one non-scripted moment. Well, she said two non-scripted moments. The second one was scripted.
Yeah.
It was when she got protested at the one rally.
Oh, that's right.
And she did the
shut up.
She did the head turn, told him to shut up.
And no, she said that they're helping elect Trump.
You're helping elect Trump.
Yeah.
And then the second time she got protested, she was on script. She was like, I hear you. Right. I feel you. Right. Like, we're going to sort this all out.
Yes.
But yes, like there's been zero. I do think it's worth talking about this complete gap in understanding of the race between the right and the left right now. Tell me how prevalent this view is on the right. But from my like kind of social media feed, it seems like there's a substantial portion of conservatives who think that Tim Walz has been a complete catastrophe for Democrats. Yeah. They might dump him, and that Kamala Harris might actually get dumped, and that Democrats are not behind her, and it's a complete catastrophe.
I think you might be too online, to be honest.
That's the Laura Loomer world.
Yeah, this is just some Laura, like whatever, some bullshit.
Well, I will just add, I do think there's some serious misunderestimating going on, to quote Ryan's favorite president, going on the right, because, well, I know we're going to get into the attacks that Trump has developed that they have developed on Kamala Harris, and I know they're scrambling right now. Like Trump did that press conference with foodstuffs to try and talk about some of the same thing.
I did not think it went well for Trump. I really didn't. Yeah.
And so it just, they don't have anything that's sticking right now, but there is a subsection of the right that, to your point, there are people that are very online that have some influence in the campaign. And I think they don't understand that there is some genuine organic support for Kamala Harris among the public in a way that when you're competing for fractions, which is what's happening in this election. It's what's happened in every last election since 2016. That is incredibly meaningful, and you have to deal with those voters. You have to persuade those voters. I think it's crazy that people flipped on Kamala Harris and went from being like, this woman seems a little weird, to inspiration.
Actually, no, you're the weird one.
Yeah, right.
No, you're weird. Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay.
But there is that happening with 5 to 10% of the voting base. That's significant.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show, ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.